Hey there, interwebs, and welcome back to Flagshaming. If you're just joining the series now, which would be weird, I look at state flags, shame bad designs, and offer replacements. Let's get going. Number 16, Tennessee. Finally, another one that's not an SOS or a Confederate copycat. Depending on what circles you run in, you may have heard that the 3 stars in the center are because Tennessee was the 3rd state to join after the original 13. They're not. They actually represent the 3 geographically and legally distinct grand divisions of Tennessee: Appalachian East Tennessee, Hilly Middle Tennessee, and West Tennessee nestled between the Tennessee and Mississippi rivers. State law dictates that no line drawn between the centers of any 2 run parallel to the hoist, and the highest star should be closest to the canton, so that's why they're at that jaunty angle. The white fimbriated blue circle surrounding them represents unity, and the stripe on the fly doesn't represent anything. The flag's designer, Colonel Leroy Reeves, said it, quote, relieves the sameness of the crimson field and prevents the flag from showing too much crimson when hanging limp, unquote. Basically, it's just there to balance out the red, and balance is a good thing. 10 out of 10 for Tennessee. Number 17, Ohio. Oh, Ohio, you crazy, magnificent, beautiful bastard. I love this thing. It's like you and Nepal just looked at all the other rectangular flags of the nation and the world and said, why though? This is the guidon used by the U.S. 7th Cavalry Regiment during the Spanish-American War and the Civil War, and it likely inspired the Buckeye Burgie's unique shape. Its red and white stripes symbolize the state's roads and waterways, and the blue triangle represents the hills and valleys. The white circle is an O for Ohio, and combined with the red disc evokes the Buckeye nut, the symbol of the Buckeye State. It's surrounded by 17 stars for the 17th state, and 13 are hoistward of the O for the 13 original colonies. As an Eagle Scout, I'm also very amused that it was some kid's Eagle project to figure out how to fold this crazy thing. Apparently it takes 17 folds. Remember, 17th state. I just want to know what his fitted sheets look like. As another personal note, I was tempted to make the Pennsylvania redesign a swallowtail rectangle, since that's basically the shape the state actually is, but we're right next to Ohio, and I didn't want it to seem like we're peeking at their answer sheet from the next desk over. You beat me to the punch, Ohio, and for that I salute you and your nutty flag. Number 18, Louisiana. I want to shame this flag because it's still got a good chunk of the state seal with words underneath on a solid blue field, -1, but I also have to admit that the pelican is at least recognizable from a distance. Because this flag actually looks better from far away where you can't see the superfluous details, I will shame it in a way that you also won't notice from far away. Shame. Fun fact, a while ago I wanted to make a short video for how fascinating about the words invulnerable, vulnerable, and the verb to vuln. It means to harm, and I bring it up now because that's exactly what the pelican is doing to herself. In fact, pelicans are basically the only context in which the word vuln is still used. In heraldry, a pelican vulning was one pecking her own breast open to draw blood, and a pelican in her piety was doing so to feed her young. It was a medieval European belief that a mother pelican was especially attentive to her offspring, and would feed them her own blood if no other food was available, which seems pretty metal, and the whole thing was a metaphor for Jesus. There's a link to more information in the description if you're interested. For my redesign of Louisiana's lousy flag, I decided to keep the pelican for its symbolism and the fact that it's the state bird, so I just simplified everything a few notches. I created a version with less extraneous detail, and removed the nest, chicks, and ribbon because you couldn't make those out from a distance anyway. The last thing I did was form the drops of blood into a bright crimson fleur-de-lis upon her breast, because this is Louisiana we're talking about, and you gotta get one of those up in there somewhere. Their fleur-de-lis is like Pennsylvania's keystone. That's also why I created this backup design. Both designs, though, use only blue, white, and red as a dual reference to the state's American status in French history. Number 19, Indiana. Up until this point, I've just been keeping whatever aspect ratios the state flags already had. The only notable exceptions are New York, New Jersey, and Vermont, which don't have any official ratio since it's just the state seal on a solid background anyway. The flag of Indiana is oddly unique in that it has 2 official ratios, 2-3 and 3-5. These are both fine choices, but traditionally you're actually supposed to make a choice, and to quote 20th century Canadian prog rock philosophers Rush, quote, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice, unquote. I decided to split the difference and go with a ratio of 19:30. This is mainly just me being silly, but you can't say it's un-American. Our national flag is 1019 for an amazingly esoteric reason. That little niggle of indecisiveness aside, I've only got one major complaint about this flag, and it's that they had to go and write their name on it, and -1 for that blue field. I also prepared a short history of this flag furnished by Wikipedia. Indiana didn't have a state flag until 1917, having decided the previous year that they should really have one to celebrate the state's 100th anniversary. They announced a design contest with a $100 cash prize and received over 200 submissions. The winning design was the work of Paul Hadley, and it was adopted on May 31st with one modification. The General Assembly added the word Indiana to it. That's right, the designer who knew what he was doing left it off, but the committee just had to meddle and sully an otherwise lovely design. The blazing torch symbolizes liberty and enlightenment, and the rays of light symbolize their far-reaching influence. The ring of 13 stars represents the 13 original colonies, the inner 5 along the bottom represent the next 5 states to join the Union, the big star at the top represents Indiana as the 19th state, having joined in 1816, and the word Indiana represents the perils of design by committee and their ability to ruin things. Get that mess out of there. I also changed the torch and the stars to red and white. Blue and gold is fine in a vacuum, but that ring of gold stars makes it now look like Indiana is somehow in the EU, and it's a little bit too similar to Alaska for my taste. The red, white, and blue stands out better, I feel, and now it's more American and less European. Fun fact, the flag of Indiana has also been used with slight modifications as the flag of Gotham in Tim Burton's Batman. Number 20. Mississippi. You're just going out of your way to offend everybody with this one, aren't you? You'll offend the normies with that canton, you'll offend the historians with the stars and bars, you'll offend your own sympathizers by mucking with their southern pride flag, and you'll offend the vexillologists for all the reasons listed above.
Quad shame.
This probably isn't why my grandfather used to call you Mississippi, but that flag deserves it. Let's ditch the whole mess and start fresh. The first flag ever used by Mississippi was the Bonnie Blue flag of the Republic of West Florida, and Mississippi first flew it upon declaring secession at the start of the Civil War. Their first state flag was known as the Magnolia flag and was used from 1861 to the end of the Civil War. It has the Bonnie Blue in the canton and a magnolia tree on a white field, and frankly I'm getting tired of lone tree flags with a single star in the canton. That's already taken by Massachusetts, Maine, South Carolina, and my Vermont redesign, so I'm going to look for something more original and less Confederate. The current flag was adopted in 1894, and unsurprisingly, people are less keen about it now than they were back then. There was a referendum in 2001 to change the design to this. The 13 stars in the outer ring represent the colonies. The 6 stars in the middle ring represent the 6 groups that held Mississippi throughout her history: the Native Americans, the French, the Spanish, the British, the U.S., and the Confederacy. The star in the middle represents Mississippi herself and brings the total number of stars up to 20 for the 20th state. Congrats on removing the Virginian battle flag, but ironically this would have made the new flag look more like the original CSA flag, so perhaps it's a good thing that the referendum failed. In 2014, Lauren Stennis proposed this design, which she said took an inverted Bonnie Blue and surrounded the central star with 19 others, again for the 20th state. The red bars added to either side represent the blood spilled by Mississippians. She said she wished to create, quote, an image that would better capture our history and hopes without denying or romanticizing our past, unquote, and focus on history, hope, and hospitality. She's got my vote, but part of this series is coming up with my own designs, so here's mine. The blue stripe along the hoist represents the river which shares the state's name and marks their western border. The flower in the center is a magnolia for the Magnolia State. It has 13 petals, which I'd like to say are there to represent the colonies, but really it's just a happy accident because that was the best clip art I could find. The white field symbolizes hope and hospitality for the Hospitality State, Mississippi's other nickname, and the crimson represents the blood spilled by Mississippians, as well as the bloody awful design we're trying to replace. That's all for now, folks, and if you want to discuss my redesigns, there's a Reddit link in the description along with a link to my Twitter. The next episode of this series is next weekend, but Wednesday will bring another episode of How Fascinating. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.